Hello! I'm Bomani Tyehimba coming back with another episode of Framework for the Family.
Yes.
And I'm here with my co-host Zeke Adams. And we want you to hit that subscribe button, that like button.
Yes.
Leave us some comments. And we're going to go into a new topic which my co-host Zeke Adams is about to frame for us. And we're going to talk about
Inheritance.
Inheritance.
On a second marriage.
Second marriage.
You
got a blended family now.
Blended family,
Okay.
and we're talking about someone who has established themselves and they've been divorced and they've gotten remarried. And to talk about their inheritance to the biological
And
non-biological.
okay, this is from the male point of view or both?
Male or female.
Okay.
Okay. So this particular conversation was pretty much given to me, and it's something that we really I thought we'll talk about it. I think it's a topic that I'm not really grounded in saying a yay or nay, but I think it's a topic that that is really not talked about. So let me.
So we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Let me set the groundwork.
Yeah, set the groundwork.
So you have established businesses and some other things, and you're divorced.
Okay.
Okay. And you remarry with a person that has children.
Okay.
Okay. And you have biological children yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
From a previous marriage.
From your previous marriage.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
If you were to will your business or your financial gains or your financial, would you will that to the biological kids, to the non-biological kids, as well as your biological kids? So, in talking with this person, they were like, I would not will my inheritance to my non-biological kids. Reason being is they share someone else's name. Okay. Now, my wife has taken on my new wife has taken on my last name, but the children are not mine.
Okay.
I will my inheritance to my biological kids. And I spoke to the person. I said, okay.
What about your wife? You and your wife?
Would you will that to your wife?
Yeah, would you will any portion of it?
Any portion to your wife.
Yeah.
Because that's the same thing. She's going to spread the wealth to her biological kids.
Yeah.
And he said, probably not.
No to the new wife and no to the non-biological children.
The children that is going to bear my last name and the children that I have.
You birthed them.
I birthed them.
Yeah, they're part of your seed.
They're part of my seed are the ones that will get my inheritance. So I went back and I said, let me study this a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is kind of out of the box, you know. And you look at Moses.
Okay.
Moses. Moses and when Moses grew up, he was never going to be king because Pharaoh's biological kid was going to be king.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And you start looking at some of the things that was in the Bible. The biological kids were always awarded kingships and other things like that. If you look at how society is now, a lot of the big businesses, train companies, stuff like that, the children who are the biological kid carry the last name. Who carry the last name are the ones who was running the businesses. So, I looked at that and I was like, is he wrong for saying that?
Is he?
I have no idea. That's what we have this podcast.
That's why we have the podcast.
We want you guys to comment on this. Is it something that in remarrying someone, and the children bears your ex's, or or your future's wife, ex-husband's last name, or ex-wife's last name. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Should you not, if you're in a situation to leave an inheritance, should you leave an inheritance for kids that are not yours?
Okay. Well, should we? So let's look at this because we're discussing. I'm admitting right now that this you caught me cold with this topic, and I don't right now off the top of my head. I don't have any. Response, but we're going to talk it through.
Yeah.
So let's deal with, okay, I'm assuming this as you painted the picture, it's the husband. Let's deal with the husband. Okay.
It could be anybody.
I understand, but
nowadays females have.
Okay, sure.
All
right. So the spouse.
The spouse.
All right. So let's deal from that standpoint. The spouse remarried, and the spouse, one of the spouses that's entering into this remarriage, had some business in their name. Their children may have worked in that business, or the children would have inherited that business entity should that spouse pass on.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at it from this standpoint. One, they were married before.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at, so they had a previous spouse, and had they not divorced, would the previous spouse have had some rights to that business? I would say yes. We're going to assume it's yes. So not only we're dealing with the ex-spouse, we're also talking about the biological children.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to, what would that new spouse in this new marriage now? Maybe they had a will. Let's assume that they had a will that passed on some inheritance to their former spouse as well as their biological children.
Mm-hmm.
I would think the first thing that they need to do is update that will, unless that previous spouse had some rights to that business. That's the first thing.
Now, would you update the will giving the inheritance to the new wife?
Well,
the children.
Okay, well, I'm working towards that.
Okay, let's work towards it.
Yeah, we just having a discussion.
Yeah, this is discussion.
I'm not offering any type of expertise on this subject. So let's say, you got. I think you have to deal with the former spouse, because I don't know if you got. I really don't know.
I don't think you do.
You don't think?
I think if you
because it was your business.
Yeah, and if you have a settlement, the
all of that's going to be taken care of.
That's yeah, and then whatever you have left.
Okay, well, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So the divorce settlement,
which would be little,
because she got half.
Yeah.
So half. Well, he got half too.
Yeah.
So the divorce settled that situation. So now you're talking about here. I bought out my spouse, and now I own 100% of whatever that business enterprise was.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they bought you out, you don't have any business to pass on.
Right.
So I guess the assumption is, hey, I bought out my spouse because she had a legal right to, or she or he had a legal right to.
Right.
It. And now I have this 100% owned entity, and now I'm remarried.
Mm-hmm.
Do I enter into this new marriage with this asset, this business, and should something happen to me, does it go to my new wife, and would I allow for some of it also to go to my non-biological children? That's a quandary.
Now, I talked to an actual female that owns a business.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I would not give my new husband children the right to what my biological kids should have.
So did she enter into this remarriage with a prenuptial?
Yes.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, she got, and from what she was saying, prenup can only go so far.
Sure.
But she did do that because she doesn't feel her children works with her in the business.
Gotcha.
And she's protecting their best interest in their future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, even though her ex-husband is nowhere to be found,
mm-hmm.
the children still carries
mm-hmm.
the last name. Now, she is not having any more children.
Gotcha.
And she is invested in her biological kids.
Okay.
And she says that he should be invested in his biological kids.
Okay.
Which he's not.
Okay. Well, let's stop right there. I think you mentioned something, and that's what I was even getting at. I asked, was there prenuptial?
Yeah.
And I wanted to, and the reason I asked that question because my thinking was, you got to settle that before you even remarry. And if there's a prenuptial that says, hey, we're going to enter, I'm marrying you. However, I want you to know something. I have a business enterprise.
Yeah. That
I built apart from you.
Mm-hmm.
And my desire, really my non-negotiable, is that should something happen to me, that business enterprise goes to my biological children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to marry you. And in this remarriage, before we marry, we need to I have a prenuptial that I want you to sign.
That's a hard conversation to have with someone.
Okay, it is. But if they sign it,
yeah.
Okay, if they sign it, they agree to it. So the main thing is those type of things need to be discussed up front.
That's the conversation piece, and
you can't enter into this remarriage and hoping that it's going to be okay. So the first thing to do is you got to have that conversation up front, no matter how hard it is. And really, what you're saying is, hey, I want my children, I want to pass that inheritance along to them. Okay. Yes, I love you, and I want to get married, but you have to know.
Ooh, that's a sticky conversation.
It's a sticky conversation.
I mean, because if you are a person to even bring, let's just say you are the person with the non-biological kids,
mm-hmm.
and you guys are married. You didn't talk about it, and you just asked the question. Hey.
By the way,
you know, is the will okay? Is all is my kids in the will as well? And you say no.
Well, you didn't have. That means you didn't have that discussion.
Yeah.
So you haven't had that discussion. So if that is your desire, you need to have that prenuptial discussion, and that's the only way it's going to work. Because later on down the line,
is a prenuptial, is that biblically correct?
I don't even know if it's prenuptial is biblically correct, but
because two should become one.
Okay.
If you look at that particular statement in the Bible,
yes, is a prenuptial a biblical?
You're not sharing.
You're not sharing,
and you're saying I ain't sharing. So is that something when it comes to inheritance mm-hmm. on the second marriage? Is there out for that? The prenuptial is there an out for? I mean, or is the prenuptial? Is it okay to have a prenuptial in the second marriage?
Okay, well now we're going down a different road, but I'll say
it's the same road.
I'll say this: if that is your intention. And that's, quote unquote, this is what you want to happen. Hey, I'll marry you. However, I need you to understand something, that I have this business over here, and should something happen to me while we are married in this new marriage, I want my children, I want it to go to my children, not to your children. You got to have that discussion.
Yeah.
And you guys, you have to do that up front.
Mm-hmm.
And as hard as it might seem, that from a say it? I'll say, I don't think there's but for lack of a better word, political correct situation.
Mm.
These new children, they weren't invested in that business. I didn't start this when they were around. We just met. You know, the hard fact is they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
They don't deserve it. That, you know. Now, if that's not if you know, that's cut and dry situation. Now, if you want them to deserve it, then that's up to you. Okay, so are you going to share everything that you come into the marriage with? If that's your makeup, if that's your
would you do it?
Would I do it? These are hypothetical situations.
Hypothetical.
These are hypothetical situations.
Okay,
and this is a hypothetical situation.
Conversations.
I've said this a hypothetical about 3 or 4 different times. He's trying to put me into a corner, you know, because my wife watches this podcast.
I saw his point. Yeah. I really did, and it's like I thought about it.
Don't try and back me up again, man. Don't put me in get me in trouble.
You know, after talking with people, I saw his point.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, but now it's like, especially if you marry some kids that were already grown. Let's say you married, not married some kids, but you married
a wife.
You married a wife, and their kids is like in their 20s.
Heck no, absolutely not. And you're entering into your children, what? Underage, 12?
Yeah, it don't matter. Your kids could be in their 20s too.
Okay.
But yeah, you know,
true.
You're working, and you know what, and you have did well for yourself, and you know, and your new wife is expecting.
She's expecting
that your will, or if anything that is coming out of your will, that will go to her and her children.
Yeah.
I can't see it.
You can't see what?
I can't see doing that.
You can't see it going to a new children, whether they're toddlers, teenagers, or 20-somethings, and they have their own family.
Now, it's a hypothetical question, and, you know, I mean, I'm not grounded on that decision, so I don't want no people jumping out the woods and tackling me. But it's very hard. That's a difficult situation, and most likely, if you look at just society itself,
I don't think those things are even discussed.
They're not. That's why.
I don't think they're discussed for the most part. The person you gave as an example, they did have a prenuptial, so that they thought about it, because that's what they wanted to do. Me personally, and generally speaking, this is Bomani's just opinion on it. Things like this happen when things like this happen in marriage. I think typically it's not discussed. So now you're married, and then it comes up. You know, the spouse says, "Hey, they happen to know you got this asset or this business or whatever it is," and then they may ask, "Hey, am I in the will?
Mm-hmm.
Are my children in the will?"
Yeah.
And then that's when it's going to become. It's already a difficult situation, but it's really going to, because even just asking the question, am I in the will? There's an expectation that you should be in the will, and my children should be in the will because you married me and you knew I had some children.
And then you're like, what angle are you coming from?
Yeah, why are you asking me that?
Why are you asking me a question?
Because I want to know.
You know, it's a sticky topic, and I think it's a topic that
it's not sticky. It's a controversial.
It's
topic.
A controversial topic.
Well, it's sticky. Sticky, fine. I can go with sticky.
And at the end of the day, I think that more and more people should talk about it, especially if you own businesses, if you're in, you know, if you have a structure set up for your children. And you're meeting someone new, you know, that conversation really needs to be had. And it's not, you know, when the person talked to me about it, it caught me off guard. I was like, what? Wait a minute.
What?
Yeah, you might be right, you know?
Yeah.
How would they look at that? And even a female said they wouldn't do it.
Sure. Right.
It goes with my kids.
What you do?
I don't know. I just said before, I see his point,
Yeah.
You know, if my biological kid, those are my biological kids.
Right. You got Stallion Farms, very successful lawn care business. You know, very high quality, and I've even seen your boys work in the business as well. And it's taken some years to get Stallion Farms where it is.
And for me to develop my kids, that's a hard topic. That's a very hard topic because whether or not they take over the business or take over,
you may decide to just sell the business.
Well, it will be based upon them still.
Yeah, right.
You know, if something was to a point where I couldn't run the business anymore or something like that, if my kids will have that over to me, you know, over everyone else. If I were to get remarried, it would still go to my kids. I really do see where he's coming from, and I didn't really think about that.
It's an eye opener when he said
it was an eye opener.
And when you start researching it and looking into it, you know, and it's like, I'm going to delve into this a little more. And I don't think that you've arrived at a quote unquote
destination. No, I have not. I have not.
It opened your
eyes,
change that, and it has really just opened my eyes too. That this probably is a topic that's not discussed, it's one that you probably need to discuss.
Yeah, because you'd be like, "Well, you said you was gonna take care of me." I said, "I'm take care of you."
But what about my kids? What about your kids?
Yeah, they got a pappy. They got their own pappy. Ooh. No, I mean, but man, look, I mean that caught me so off guard. So we got to throw that in.
Yes.
The conversation,
right.
You know, for our audience.
And I'll tell you something. What we're saying is we don't have all the answers.
We don't.
But we recognize that this is a topic that should be discussed. And if you have remarried and you didn't discuss that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be business. There's some assets.
Yes.
That when you came into this new marriage you remarried someone. There's still some things that are assets, you know, that you have. So I don't know. Have a conversation.
Yeah, and quick with the final minutes that we have. Let's talk about prenup.
Yeah,
I want to turn that corner.
Yeah,
because prenup is another thing.
Is it biblical?
Is prenup biblical?
I don't know.
A prenuptial agreement.
Is it?
Let's
Google it real quick.
We're going to Google this real quick.
Let's see what Google has to say.
Yeah, I would like to know whether or not if someone was to get a prenup, are they living by the standards of what God is asking them to do in the marriage? If you're requesting for a separation of, I guess prenups is pretty much separation of everything.
I don't know. Well, I know. Well, my limited knowledge about prenuptial is you want to have a prenuptial dealing with assets or wealth creation or what have you prior to the marriage.
Right.
You want to set some boundaries. Hey, these things that I'm bringing to the table on a financial basis, business basis, or what have you, okay, that I want these exempt from you pre-married, us pre-getting married.
Right.
Anything that let's say it could be apartment buildings, real estate dealings, businesses.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So let's take care of this. I want to marry you, and at the same time, I want you to understand these things that I built prior to us getting married. You have no right to them.
And if you're on the receiving side, and let's just say you are in love with this person, is that fair?
Well, we're not even dealing with fair. Okay, so
I don't think it is.
Yeah, okay, I understand. So what you're saying is we're going to separate the things that I built up to that part. These are mine.
That means if the marriage was to go sour, and you had a divorce, the things that you came in with in the marriage, you take back out.
Say what now?
The things that you
came in with the marriage, you still retain those.
Retain that
if it ends. Yes. Anything we created while we're married, we share in them equally.
I don't know.
Well, that's what a prenuptial is.
Okay.
You know, it's basically saying, hey, like to put it as simple as you said, that's you've broken it down. Anything we've come into this marriage that we have prior to us getting married, if we divorce, we still retain it. If I have a real estate empire, you have a business, okay, whatever it is. If we, the prenuptial says that whatever business entity that you had prior to us getting married, if we divorce, it's still yours. I don't have any right to it. By the same token, you don't have any right to those things which I brought to it. And those things are going to be listed out in the agreement. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what it doesn't apply to things that you build together in this new marriage. So it does not.
Are you saying that?
I'm saying that's my understanding of it.
Okay.
My understanding is you have an agreement so that those things which you're bringing to the marriage, those assets, those businesses, car dealership, what have you, I own franchises, different things. As an example, that should we get divorced, you don't have any right, no financial right, no inheritance right to those things. I had McDonald's franchises. All right, and I came to the marriage with those. We get a divorce. Guess what? I'm taking those McDonald's franchises with me.
So, are you saying to me that let's just say you had 5 McDonald's franchises, yes, and since you've been married, you've gathered four more. She's still not, or he's still not entitled to.
No, the 4 more
are the 4 that
you all sharing equally.
Ah,
yeah, you share equally because those are things that you developed while you were married.
But it's still you're bringing in a McDonald's. You're gonna use McDonald's.
Well, you know what? I understand your question now because you still had a McDonald's franchise. You just added 4 more to it. But I don't know. Yeah. Oh no! So let's look. Okay.
See if it's biblical.
Okay. Prenuptial agreements. Are prenuptial agreements biblical? Prenuptial agreements are not directly addressed in the Bible. There's no specific command for or against them. However, we can examine biblical principles to help determine whether using a prenuptial agreement aligns with a Christian worldview. Biblical considerations. Marriage as a covenant, not a contract. The Bible presents marriage as a covenant before God, Malachi 2:14. Not just a legal contract. Covenants involve total commitment, not conditional obligations. A prenuptial agreement can feel counter to that ideal if it assumes the possibility of failure before the marriage begins. Let me read that again.
Yeah.
A prenuptial agreement can feel counter to that ideal, a covenant, if it assumes the possibility of failure before the marriage begins. That's something to consider. Unity and oneness. Here's another.
So if you feel that the marriage might be a rocky marriage,
it's like you're saying, you know what? I don't know if this is going to last, so I'm going to protect myself in case it doesn't last. Now that's counterproductive to the fact that you won't even get married. So if you have that mindset, it's counter to the Christian worldview of even getting married, because marriage is supposed to be a lifetime until death do us part. Marriage ends when one of the situations in which marriage ends is when your spouse dies, not when you divorce. And a prenuptial is saying, in the case of divorce, these things are mine.
I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it.
Genesis 2:24 speaks of the two becoming one flesh.
Yeah.
Some argue that prenuptial agreements can undermine this unity by keeping assets separate or planning for separation. Stewardship and wisdom. Proverbs and other wisdom literature promote prudence and wise planning. Gives Proverbs 21:5 as an example. In some cases, like when one party has children, from a previous relationship, significant debt, or business interests, A prenuptial agreement might be seen as wise stewardship. So there's a reason.
Whoa.
So these things I'm reading, it's like, hey, it's not spoken of for or against biblically. It's not directly addressed, but here's some things to consider in your Christian worldview. And so and from these examples, what I'm gathering is that here are some principles from a Christian worldview. I can argue, hey, you know what? It's good stewardship because that person came with some heavy debt.
Ooh. Man.
Okay.
I mean, we're learning. We're learning today is a learning podcast for us.
Yes.
Learning for us.
Here's another line item. Love does not insist on its own way. 1 Corinthians 13:5. If a prenuptial is coercive or selfish, it may reflect a lack of sacrificial love.
I agree.
But if it's mutually agreed upon, transparent, and done with respect, it may not violate biblical love.
I just don't see how that works.
Yeah, well.
I don't see if someone is saying, we're going to be in God's covenant. And they know, this is what we need to be spiritually for one another.
Yes.
But yet we're going to put a prenup here. Shouldn't we trust God?
Well, let me before we get to we should trust God, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, giving those different look at both sides of the coin from a biblical Christian worldview, and knowing that the Bible is not directly address it for or against. These are some things to think about. So here's the conclusion. Prenuptial agreements are not inherently unbiblical, but the motive and manner in which they're created matter greatly. Christians should approach them prayerfully with wise counsel, ensuring the agreement reflects love, unity, and trust, not fear.
How can that?
Or control.
Wow.
So that's where we're going to end today. We're going to end today.
We ain't getting nobody no help on that one.
No, we're not. We're going to end with that. And maybe we'll pick it up later.
Yeah, we'll pick that up later. I think please leave some comments.
And if you have some insight about this topic, topic that you can give to us, we'd love to hear it. Maybe we should get someone on the show.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to get someone that can be able to speak about this a little bit more, that might have a little bit more a biblical outlook that's on it.
Yes. So we got to round this up?
Yeah.
Because we've got to about 30 minutes. Hey, I'm Bomani Tyehimba. This is Zeke Adams. We brought this conversation up because we think it's something that you should consider.
Yeah, a good conversation piece for you to have for those who are about to get married. I mean, these are actual topics for that we're bringing to you, to our audience, to have conversations about. And there might be just off the wall topics just like this. Yeah. But we as people, when we see how the divorce rates are so high, there is a lot of conversations that we can do to prevent. And we're starting to I'm finding out this myself. This is a new conversation piece. That me, being single, I'm like, I need to.
You need to do it. Plus, you got that lovely sound form.
Oh yeah.
So leave some comments, subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll pick this topic up at a later date. I don't know when it'll be, but we're gonna pick it back up. I'm Bomani Tyehimba. This is my co-host Zeke Adams, and we are Framework for the Family. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.
Bye.